weapon enthusiasts. I'm Nick Young, and I'm here with Nick White and Mike Odell. He's with CMMG, and we're doing a podcast for tomorrow's weapons. And he's going to tell us about himself and about the company.
Well, guys, thanks for having me. As you said, my name is Mike Odell. I'm with CMMG. I have been with the CMMG family of companies a little over 12 years now. I started off in the retail side of things. Really got to know the products really well. They decided to start taking me to SHOT Show because I could speak on the products fairly well, and just kind of carved my little path in the company there. Started going to a lot of events, meeting a lot of people. Now I'm the guy that kind of does the PR type of stuff. I do a lot of, I work in our marketing team now. I work with a lot of content creators and writers and things to get our products out there. I do different business relations, such as podcasts like this to just, help spread the word of the Second Amendment, get people more familiar with our products, supporting the Second Amendment any way they can, and just, trying to grow the industry for everybody. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
That's awesome. It's cool. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of CMMG and kind of, what got them started and then what types of innovations they've come up with over the years to kind of put them on the map?
Oh, sure. So we started off in 2002. Our company was founded by two brothers and their wives. The company started basically because of their love of firearms. They had been firearms enthusiasts for quite some time. They had made many connections, and they decided to go ahead and start making their own firearms through some of the connections that they got in the industry and being around for quite some time. And they quickly learned that there are a lot of different things that you can do with the AR platform, and just sitting on a standard 5.56 wasn't going to be anywhere close to enough for them. So they wanted to really start branching out and seeing, what else can they do with it? And, some of the early things we released were, obviously different caliber variations and stuff, like our first 308 actually took like G3 magazines as opposed to like the LR308 or SR25 style magazine everybody's used to now. But a very early version, we took G3 magazines because there's a ton of those out there and they're cheap.
Reliable.
We had, the 22 conversion kit was one of our kind of early things that we came out with too, and then doing 9mm and stuff. But, as those things progressed and the company grew, we were able to bring in more engineers and more people to kind of look at products. And honestly, a lot of the stuff that our engineers finalize are products that our owners conceptualized. So our owners are a great group of people, and they have just an incredible mindset almost for seeing what the future might hold in the industry and try to make that turn before the industry does. And in late 2014, so depending on when this airs, we are actually this month currently celebrating the 10-year anniversary of our Mark 47, which is kind of the gun that really put us on the map. Like, it was so different that it drew a lot of attention in late 2014, early 2015 SHOT Show. And the Mark 47 is, to put it as simply as possible, an AR AK hybrid done right. There have been a lot of people that would do 7.62 by 39 in an AR platform, but anybody that's ever shot 7.62 by 39 knows that tapered cartridge does not like a straight magazine well, or being fed straight into a magazine there. And whenever you try to put that wider rim onto a standard bolt carrier and mill out the face, you lose a lot of support material and a lot of metal. And you have the opportunity to have some very premature wear on some very key components of the firearm. So the Mark 47 for us was, well, we built a 308, so let's take 308 size stuff and just make it shorter. And we ultimately made a mid-size platform. We designed it specifically around the 7.62 cartridge. So it takes pretty much any AK mag that you can throw at it, including drums. The bolt carrier's overbuilt, but it uses standard AR controls. So it just, and we have one that I have personally been taking to event after event after event. Like I'm talking range days, shooting full auto. And we don't skimp whenever we go to range days. Like if you come to my line, I'm giving you a 30 round mag, not like a 7 or a 10 round mag. I'm letting you have some fun. And, we finally retired my original demo at like over 220,000 rounds through the same gun. And obviously small things like hammer pins, trigger pins, ejectors or extractors and stuff like that have been replaced. But the core gun, the upper, lower, bolt carrier, bolt, and barrel were all the original components. It was, we retired it because the rifling was no longer fully engaging. We'll just put it
turned into a shotgun.
Yeah, shooting down. It wasn't twisting.
So we still have that. It's kind of like on our wall of fame because that gun just like, and we beat the tar out of it. You can go onto YouTube and find where we'll have it arranged and it gets so hot that you can't even hold it. And I just dip it in a cooler of water. Like my machinists hate hearing me say that, but I just dip it in a cooler of water. It cools off. You see the water flash boil. Right. And then we just pick it back up, load it, and people just keep running it. So that's like, we have such a demand at events that the line demands that thing stays running. And that's the very mean way to keep it going.
That's a great technique. I think we need to have a cooler at the shooting line moving forward.
Yep, for sure.
Well, it was really fun because it was like a cooler with our drinks in it that I travel with. And at one point we're like, this is getting so hot. We need to do something about it. I'm like, I just fill the cooler full of water. So every event we've done that in, it literally has like carbon rings from the water around the cooler. So you can kind of see it's like carbon dating its age of the cooler itself. So it's just, it's a lot of fun.
Well, that's cool.
I have sorry.
Go right ahead.
I was going to say, I have a question specifically. You talk about a lot of the innovations that you guys are bringing to market are things that the owners had set out to do originally, but it just took time for engineers to get there. What are their backgrounds, and what is the driving force behind the innovation that they seek to bring to market?
I mean, their background is just being gun enthusiasts that are really attuned to the market. I mean, very early, they were on forums quite frequently, like, the ARFCOMs and things of that sort. And they were the guys engaging in the forums, as CMMG with, customers and other people writing on the forums. And they were kind of noticing like, okay, people are hinting at this or that. And then I think their brains just go, okay, well, we could take this and that and combine that into this.
Right.
So, a lot of it really is driven by customer feedback to an extent, or seeing a possible, I don't even know if I would say need, but at least maybe a want, but nobody else has really been able to provide it well. And they're like, all right, let's see if we can do this and do it right. That's the Mark 47 is a key example in my opinion. Obviously I'm a little biased, and that one was kind of one of my first big releases with the company. So it's always kind of be my baby as far as helping promote it and stuff. And I absolutely love that gun. I have one of the very first releases like sitting in my safe next to me here. But it's just, they took that mid-size platform, that overbuilt platform, and they're like, let's do 458 because, there was 458 in standard ARs, but 458 never got SAMI spec'd, but they were able to actually get the pressures and stuff needed by using it out of our overbuilt gun.
I see.
So, and that started off by one of the owners going, he kind of modified a magazine to feed 458 into the Mark 47, put a 45 caliber barrel on it. He got one to work, and then he basically took it to our engineers and was like, make this better.
Right.
So
give them a starting point.
Right. Yeah. So, they've got some great ideas. And like I said, their starting point was primarily, the best way for me to say it is they are just very attuned to the market in ways that I can't even comprehend. I've been an enthusiast, an instructor, and a fan for years. But they're just on a different level, and it's awesome to see the things that they bring to our engineers to finalize and or fully realize.
Right. What does CMMG stand for?
I'll say legally nothing.
Okay.
As I like to jokingly say, it's classified. I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you. It's one of those things it's out there in the ether, and it's a story I like to let the owners tell. So,
I see. Okay.
I'll leave it at that for now.
Understood. So after you did I guess the Mark 47, I think initially people knew it as the Mutant, and then you guys, a couple years after that, released your radial delay system. Tell us about that, and I'm a roller delay junkie with the MP5. I love that system and the low recoil, and I think your radial delay is very intriguing for not having to have the heavy recoil of a standard blowback system.
Well, it was really fun how that kind of came to be. It's because there were already AR9s out on the market. I mean, we had one in as far as like the Colt Fed style magazine, which is really kind of funny because you think you pick up an AR chambered in 9mm, and your brain goes, "This is a 9mm. There's nowhere near as much recoil as a 5.56 or 2.23 is going to be." But then you shoot like straight blowback versus a DI system, and it thumps you in the shoulder, and you're confused. You're like, "What just happened there?" So it's a little bit strange, but nines were already out there, and we decided to try something different. We're like, let's do a 45. So we kind of wanted to bring like an AR version of like the UMP or something like that to the market. And so we started focusing on 45, and we realized that there wasn't enough pressure with 45 to run a DI system, but it was too much pressure to run traditional blowback.
Right.
So we had to figure out something. And through a lot of trial and error and a lot of different renditions, radial delay blowback was born. And very simply put, it looks like a bolt carrier group of a standard AR-15, but we've got some chamfered lugs on the back of the bolt face that engage with the lugs in the chamber adapter, or the so it doesn't truly lock, but what happens is the rearward thrust of the bullet pushes on the bolt face, makes those chamfered lugs slowly start to turn the bolt. That in turn moves the cam pin as opposed to a gas system. So that turns the cam pin, that starts to compress the bolt, and then it aligns up. And that little bit of the bolt turning and turning the cam pin and stuff bleeds off just enough pressure in that small movement that from once it's completely opened up, it cycles like a standard traditional blowback from there. But since it does bleed off that pressure, the standard blowback can be operated with a bolt carrier group the weight of a standard AR-15 bolt carrier group on a carbine buffer and spring instead of a traditional like heavier 9mm buffer and spring. So that's where radial delay blowback was born, was on the 45, and then we've adapted it to multiple other calibers like 9mm 40 Smith & Wesson 5.7 by 28, 10mm. So it's been.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty ingenious system because the simplicity of it is just, I mean, it's one of those things that after you see it, it looks like a really obvious mechanism to make, but nobody really thought about it. And so I think one of my buddies long ago coined the term genius in simplicity, and I think that would apply with your radial delayed system. So when you guys initially, sorry, go ahead.
I was say that's the simplicity. Was like we also introduced a stock operation that we call the rip stock.
Yep.
All we did was like chamfered edges on the holes on the buffer tube, and we dug into it, and like nobody had ever done that before and like patented it or anything. So we patented it, and it was like, it's so simple. It's like, why hasn't anybody tried this before? This is such a simple idea. And it spoils you because like I go into gun shops now and I'll grab an AR and I just want to rip it. And I'm like, oh, this doesn't do what ours does.
Yep. And and initially when you released that radial system, you used a full length bolt carrier, and then later I guess you shortened it up in your DISSENT. Is the weight of both of those bolt carriers about the same, or are you seeing a difference in recoil between a full length bolt carrier versus a short one?
I'm jokingly going to say recoil is kind of subjective. I'm going to say it's a different recoil impulse. So like it almost feels like there's even more of a delay to it using the new compact action system that we have in our DISSENTs. So it's, like I said, I don't know that it's necessarily lighter. It's probably right on par. It's just there's an odd kind of like delay to it that just makes it feel slightly different.
I see. I want to shoot the Radial system side by side with the MP5 just to see what difference in recoil there is. I think that your rifles are probably lighter than the HK90 series or the MP5.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I don't know. It's been a minute since I've actually looked at the like tech specs as far as the weights and stuff. And obviously over the years we've changed using different materials, handguards and things of that sort. So they fluctuate a bit over the years, but that's been one of the things, like when we first released the Radial Delay Blowback, we had a lot of people that were, content creators and stuff that were taking our guns and they were shooting it side by side with a straight blowback, or they were shooting it side by side with an MP5 or something. And that's one of the beauties of the AR system is, since that, all in line system greatly reduces recoil. I mean, it just makes for an incredible shooting gun. Well, you reduce that reciprocating mass, it just makes it even more brilliant. It's really been just a soft shooter. It's been one of, we see a lot of, like female AR classes and stuff. Like you get introduction to the AR platform. We've always got the 22 kit, but man, you want to talk about something that shoots nice. It's not as loud. So, you get somebody wanting to get introduced to the AR platform. You have still soft recoiling like an AR, but since you have significantly less powder and stuff too, it's not as scary when they shoot it for the first time either, but it's still putting very effective rounds down range.
So that makes it a really good candidate for new shooters.
It does. Right. We see a lot of people, and especially with the popularity of, pistol caliber ARs and stuff just increasing dramatically over the last few years. Fortunately, we got ahead of that game. We started making the changes, and we have a system that just really lends itself really well to, new shooters. I mean, as you guys well know, ever since the events of 2020, as far as, society goes, there's a whole new demographic of purchasers and buyers out there. And a lot of them aren't more old school like me. Like I over research everything I buy. And anymore, some people will just be like, I see this, I want it, and they don't know a thing about it. But it still lends itself to, even that kind of shooter.
Right. And so we talked a little bit about the, your pistol system being in the DISSENT. Maybe tell us about the DISSENT line itself. I think that's kind of your third tier innovation in the sequence of real innovative guns that have been pretty successful in the marketplace.
Yeah, the DISSENT has been, it's been a really great release for us also. So it basically took a lot of the stuff we already had and it put it into what we call our compact action. So it's a shortened bolt carrier that has dual guide rods and springs on the top of it. And the entire action is housed within the upper receiver itself. So it negates the need for a traditional buffer and tube sticking off the back. And it's something we were actually working on for quite some time. And the process was gearing toward our most recent releases in the BR series. But we were trying to figure out a new kind of action that didn't need a buffer. And we were working on it. And then the whole pistol tube thing on ARs came to be. And that quickly is kind of why we named it the DISSENT, because we're like, you know what, if you're going after ARs with buffer tubes and pistol braces, guess what, this one doesn't need it. Right. There is no pistol tube or anything. So what, forget it. Here's an AR pistol that everybody can buy because it doesn't conform to your thought up rules or imaginary rules that you're trying to impose on people.
I didn't understand that was the origin of the name. That's pretty good.
that's kind of where that came from. We were like, we had the idea and then all that stuff happened. We're like, this is what it's going to be. We need to answer it in this way.
Yeah,
And we kind of really pushed it, really quick into the market, and we pushed it as a pistol AR, and we released it in 9, 5.56, 300 blackout, and 5.7. Actually, the 9 may have come just a little bit later.
I see.
But I mean, we released it with a 5.56 and a 6.5-inch barrel. So it was just, just very obnoxious. And we started off with it just being pistols because of the whole brace thing.
Yep.
And then we quickly realized how great the system operated on a lot of things. And it's grown into 16-inch barrels and beyond. We now have it in most of our calibers, including like the larger calibers like 308, 6.5 Creedmoor, 8.6 Blackout, 7.62 by 39. So the Mark 47 has been adopted into it. So it's been a great platform. And the cool thing is you now have all of those calibers that are in an AR platform that can be shot. If you have it in a rifle configuration, it can be shot with the stock folded. If you have it in a pistol configuration with a brace, it can still shoot folded. But now that you have a smaller barrel, it can easily fit into a backpack or something of that sort. So if you're an outdoorsman and you just want a minimal footprint, but you want some firepower on you, you've got that. So it's lended itself to being a very, very compact, concealable option, easy to carry, all the way up to the big dogs and 20+ inch barrel 308 6.5 Creedmoor type stuff.
Right.
So, and you still have the added benefit of the compact action being that slightly lighter recoil. And we've also found that that slightly lighter recoil, that operating system also allows for a few more loadings, and being less finicky in that neighborhood too.
I see. And the DISSENT has an operating system that you could say it's similar to like the SIG MCX, but rather than doing a piston-driven system, you guys did direct impingement. And so why don't you talk a little bit about the operating system?
Yeah, so on those systems that typically require gas that aren't based on radial delay blowback, so your 5.56s, 300 blackouts, various calibers like that, we typically run an adjustable gas block on those systems, and we still run it as DI. Because, when you look at piston versus DI, there are going to be people that are in both camps. It's an 870 versus a 500. It's Ford versus Chevy. Everybody's going to have their opinion wherever they were kind of raised on, and I can see benefits and cons of both sides. But we gave up on we just kind of ignored the cooling of it and the dirt, because let's face it, the main advantages of a piston are the bolt carriers run cooler and they typically don't get as dirty.
Yep.
But the added benefit to the DI system is it's very simple. You have less moving mechanical parts to wear on each other, but it also does give an even lighter recoil impulse. So it's typically smoother. Whenever you have metal on metal smacking on each other with a piston, you feel that extra little something in there. So like if you shoot our direct impingement, compact action system in the Mark 47 versus an AK, it is night and day difference. I mean, the Mark 47 in the direct impingement, compact action is so smooth. It's like you really wonder if you just shot 7.62 by 39 until you see the flame or hear the bark.
Yeah, and we saw, we did a lot of accuracy tests between direct impingement rifles and piston rifles, and in general, the piston rifles are less accurate just due to the harmonic forces of that piston being out at the front of the barrel. And so I'm curious to know if you guys have done very much accuracy testing with your DI systems, or if it's more, and what kind of accuracy you're achieving, if it's like just standard M4 accuracy, or what is it?
I mean, for the most part, it typically is going to be like standard M4 accuracy. We want the guns to be accurate enough for everybody to shoot them, but accuracy and precision necessarily isn't necessarily our focus. We want a utilitarian firearm that
Right.
is going to be something that it's going to put effective rounds downrange where you need them to when you need them to.
Right.
So, but yeah, you definitely do see, like, I mean, when you get the barrel whip, whenever it shoots, anything you have attached to the barrel is going to affect that, and then in turn change it. So the less stuff we can have on there, all of our guns starting in 2019 all went to free floated handguards and stuff. So we quit doing the traditional clamshells
Right.
with the front sight base and stuff. We're like, let the barrel do what it was designed to do as best as you can. So, a
Right.
gas block and gas tube is about the only thing you're going to see touching our barrels.
I
Yeah.
see.
You talk about, the difference between DI and piston in terms of there's less moving parts, more reliability, it's simpler, all that stuff. I'm curious if we kind of segue into the reliability of this system with the, double operating rods and 2 springs. Like that's more parts than a traditional buffer tube spring.
Right.
Like how can you address the reliability, or what are you seeing in terms of reliability on your system specifically?
For the DISSENT.
Yes, for the DISSENT.
Right. I mean, honestly, that was a bit of a learning curve, and that's one of the things, like you have continued innovation. So you have things like the dual guide rod system that we came up with for the compact action. And that's a great feature. But as it gets out there and it gets more rounds downrange, I mean, we're going to torture test it and abuse it as much as we can. But until it actually sees conditions that maybe we didn't think to test under, we don't necessarily know some things that might need to be tweaked. So we continue to evolve those products and make changes to them to make sure they're going to be as reliable as possible. So that could be larger, stiffer guide rod springs that are guide rods themselves. That could be beefier springs and things of that sort. So, we had a little bumper on the back end that, kind of rocks in as part of the teardown on it. And we've realized, we've had to change materials on that to be something that's a little bit more resistant, more chemical resistant. You don't realize when we test it, we might test it with certain chemicals coming in contact with it, but you don't stop to think, okay, you're going to have some guy out there just hitting it with brake cleaner or whatever as hard as he can, just spraying it in there. How are the different, rubbers or whatever going to handle those type of things? So, we've already gone through a couple renditions of upgrades to get beefier springs and guide rods and things like that in that system. And that's probably going to be something you continue to see because, we've got what we call our lifetime quality guarantee. If you ever have any problem with any of our products, you just get a hold of us and we're going to make it right for you. But that also is like, okay, if you had a problem with the guide rod, we didn't know it was a problem till we get it brought in. We see enough of that, we need to make a change. We beef it up. We upgrade the parts for the customer that had the problem, and we send it on its way.
Understood. What customer demographic do you guys target your products towards? You got civilians, law enforcement, military, like.
Primarily civilian. We would love to dive into the military and law enforcement side of things, but you get into a whole new world there when it comes to just the dealings with that. All the things that you have to send to them for testing, and it's and to meet their terms and conditions sometimes is just insane. I mean, we would love to do that, and we've offered stuff up in those realms before, but honestly, I mean, the civilian market is primarily where we're focused at. We support a lot of local law enforcement. So, we have, our local sheriff's departments, police departments and stuff. If they need something that operates well and they know, hey, if there's ever a problem, we're right here. So we try to do a fair amount of that throughout Missouri as much as we can. We try to be the supplier of Missouri firearms, but civilian market is primarily where we're focused.
Well, I think that's wise because sometimes the contracting process is not the funnest thing to go through. Very expensive,
Right.
A lot of chasing things really fast, and a lot of money at stuff, and at the end of the day, you don't get down selected, don't get the contract, and it's it's sometimes a lot of wasted time and money when you could focus on just making the best products. And I like the freedom of not being, locked into just a specification that the military wants, and being able to you can do a lot more, a lot faster by not getting locked into some of that stuff.
Yeah, because they do. I mean, I have to choose my words wisely here. But you have people that are thinking of what they would think the government contracts need to be, and they have these ideas of how the gun should function. But then when you put it into real world use, some of those features or specs that you ask for go right out the window, and then you have to change it. Whereas if they just hadn't have been involved in the first place, and we would have just been able to do what we do correctly, the platform would have found itself to be the right one.
Right. Yeah, I think so too. And we do a lot of the same thing. We try to leapfrog out in front and kind of try to see what's coming up on the horizon, and be in a position, for, I guess, whoever wants that innovation when they finally figure things out. And
right.
And like you guys naming your DISSENT, we named our Wolverine after Red Dawn Wolverines, and just trying to kind of be that same, freedom loving type of company.
Yeah, that's one of the things is we like to have a lot of fun. It's ultimately we are in business, to make a name for ourselves, to to grow the business, to make some money. But we don't always take ourselves the most serious. We have a lot of fun that we do behind the scenes. If you were to see us, like at our Christmas party this past weekend, or wherever it is, you see almost like, even though we have a good amount of employees, there's really a family dynamic, and it's a family dynamic of everybody just hanging out with each other and having fun. But here's a fun little thing to just kind of to throw in there so that people can know how we don't always take ourselves the most serious is the DISSENT. We grew on the DISSENT with the release of our BR series. So the BR series is probably our most recent lineup. And what that is it takes the DISSENT uppers, but it utilizes a longer, more traditional stock lower. So we have Remington 870 style stocks on them. It's a longer receiver. You have some linkage and everything going to the trigger. So it looks more like a traditional, and it feels more like a traditional rifle with that stock. That ultimately was our goal when we came up with the operating system for the DISSENT many years ago, is because we wanted to try to come up with a firearm idea that hopefully might be more kind of quote unquote band proof.
Right.
So we were, like a modern M1 or something of that sort. And when we came up with the radial delay blowback, we started seeing a lot of things. We're like, this could possibly work a lot better. And the BR series was kind of the goal. But we had to get the DISSENT in there to get to the goal. But the BR series, people are like, well, why don't you just call it something different? Well, the upper is a DISSENT upper. It just has a different lower. So it's still the operating system of a DISSENT. Previously, all of our traditional AR lowers have been a Mark something, like the MK47, the MK4. We just call it the Mark 47 or the Mark 4. So the BR. Fun little story. Behind the scenes, when we were coming up with it, we dubbed the BR series gun the Boomer Rifle. So we just shortened Boomer down to BR. Now it's the BR4, the BR3, the BR47. Nice. So nice. That's just little things that we have fun with.
Yeah. You talked earlier about kind of like you guys have stacked your innovations, right? You started with the Mark 47, you came out with the radial delay blowback, and that kind of, then you kind of like, how can we put these all together, DISSENT, and what does that look like? What's kind of next? What can you share with us in terms of what's next for CMMG?
Well, I mean, as of us, filming this, we did just release the BR47. In another couple of weeks, we're going to have, just another chambering. So not necessarily innovation on that front, but that is one of the things with the innovation that we have and the willingness to take risks on things. a lot of ammo manufacturers will come to us and be like, hey guys, do you want to try this? And we're like, sure, let's see if it works or not. And then if it falls on its face, we discontinue it. If it works, we run with it. But we do have 338 ARC coming out here shortly. I actually got trigger time on that for the first time yesterday, and I was very pleasantly surprised. Like, I didn't know what to expect with that cartridge, but it wasn't that. It was so soft, so quiet when running suppressed, but man, it is slamming this steel downrange. It's insane. But that's the next immediate thing we have.
And you guys have the 6 arc, right now?
Yep.
How's
we've had the 6 arc for a while.
Well, and I think at least cartridge-wise, both of those I think you could say those are kind of new innovations in the cartridge world that are, I guess, on the proving line right now, right?
Yeah, and the 6 arc has actually done really well for us. You know, like the 22 arc and the 6mm arc both came out around the same time, and the 22 arc is really good for like varmint hunters and stuff of that sort. But I honestly think the 6mm arc covers both bases very well, and it adds the ability to include bigger game and stuff with the 6mm arc. So it's, for a newer cartridge, it's done very well for us. And that's one of the reasons why when, Hornady reached out to us and said, hey, 338 arc, we're like, all right, we don't know anything about it, but we'll give it a shot. And when that releases here very soon, I think a lot of people are going to be very pleasantly surprised with it. It's not a secret that we're releasing it, so I'm not sure when this podcast is going live, but when Hornady released the round or cartridge, they had our name on the list of partners. So they shared it before we even got our first prototype in. So
understood. So would you say on the 6 arc and the 22 arc, do you think both of those are going to become mainstream, or do you think the 22 arc will phase out, or what's your opinions?
Man, my crystal ball is really hazy on things like that. I don't know. From me, the consumer Mike standpoint, not necessarily the CMMG representative Mike. If I were to put my money on something, it would probably be the 22 arc possibly fades out and the 6mm stays strong. I think that's just the optimal cartridge between the two, in my opinion. But I'm sure your comments down below, you could have somebody just saying, no, this is how it is. And I don't mind being proven wrong. I just don't have a ton of experience with either of those cartridges because my hunting needs don't fall into those lines. So it's really tough. Like, we make so many cartridges. I mean, we're up to 15 or 16 cartridges that we chamber for right now. So we have something for everybody. And 22 arc and 6mm arc just aren't necessarily for me personally, but they definitely fit the bill for a lot of people. But as far as continued innovation and stuff goes, we always have stuff in the pipeline. Our engineers are looking at even more stuff. We have I can't go too deep into the woods on a lot of this stuff because, I mean, as you guys know, when you're making something, you might have something that you're 80% of the way there, and then something happens and it puts it on hold, and now all of a sudden, and it could be something like a politician runs his mouth or whatever. All of a sudden, you have to shift focus to something else. And sometimes, whenever we release products, they're products we've already been working on for a couple of years. And people don't necessarily realize, like, when we released the BR series earlier this year, they're like, oh, look, SIG just released theirs, and so CMMG's copying them. I'm like, well, not necessarily. We didn't know SIG was working on it. We've been working on the BR series for years. It's just that, seeing it kind of gain some traction, we're like, maybe we should, speed this process up a little bit, take some of the other projects off of our engineers' plates and get this done faster. So understood. So like, we already had a launch plan for it, but we expedited it.
Yeah.
But we have a product that's going to be coming out in January that is going to be, it's kind of a continued evolution. You know, it takes two different products that we currently have, and it kind of melds the two together. Like, all right, we had this one system that was a great system for us, but we've noticed this one little thing that we wish we could improve upon. And then when we released the DISSENT, we made the change in the DISSENT. And then it's gone through its testing, and we were like, okay, that works better than we thought it was going to. Now we're going to kind of possibly go back and take that one piece and retrofit it to previous models to make them more effective and more reliable. So it's just one of those things, like, you know, when we release certain products, kind of like we hinted at a while ago, you know, we think we have it figured out and we're like, this works great. But as time goes on, we're like, okay, well, we didn't know what we didn't know. Now we do.
We totally understand. Yeah, we've seen that in our lines too. And one of the challenges that we face is once you have it out and it's going and you get, 10,000 users giving you feedback, you learn really fast how to make some micro tweaks and improvements to get there. But then you don't know, like, do you immediately instate those improvements, or do you wait? Because it's interesting in our industry, it seems like if you continually improve a product, then you get a lot of pushback from some of the early adopters. But like, you look at the auto industry, and every single year a car is made, there's improvements and updates, and so it's kind of interesting. You got a kind of a catch-22. Do you just release that product that you can make incrementally better and just leave it alone so that nobody feels bad about it buying something, and then or do you incrementally improve and then people just wait forever to get the latest?
I was going to ask you guys about that, so I'm glad you touched on that, because I mean, that's definitely something we see. We have, even if it's something as simple as, okay, between this model and this model year, we changed the handguard or we changed the trigger. And all of a sudden you're like, well, I ordered this, and why don't I have the new thing? I'm like, well, because you ordered the old thing. And I mean, so I like the car analogy is great. I mean, you can't go in and ask for a 2023 model year car expecting a 2024 model, add-ons or changes. So at some point there has to be a cutoff where this was that and now this is new. And it pains us that we can't make everybody happy, especially like if you have outstanding orders during that transition. A lot of times if it's a big change, we'll reach out to the customers and be like, hey, we haven't processed this order yet. This is what you ordered. We can still fulfill this order, or we have the new hotness. Do you want to make the change? And we'll try to give the customer the option sometimes if we can. Like I said, it kind of depends on when the order process is. But on the flip side too, I mean, think of the iPhone. I mean, I would like to live in a world where somebody wants what they ordered and they want the new hotness. It's like I get the new model every year.
Yep, exactly. And the thing that's crazy is iPhone, Apple releases that new phone and people are psyched about it and they want it, right? With the knowledge that in 2 years it's going to be obsolete again, and they're okay with that.
In some cases, shorter.
Yeah, I mean, there's planned obsolescence in the tech world, but fortunately, we are in a mechanical world, and things tend to last a little bit longer than the tech world. So, I mean, look at the 1911. How old is that? And people still use it.
I think you said something too a little bit earlier, and I know we've incorporated a lifetime guarantee for our products as well. But I mean, if you do the best that you can, where if there's an identified reliability issue that you guys can you resolve, then when somebody has that problem, you upgrade them, right? So I think that is kind of a good workaround. I know we've seen some success doing that, as I'm sure you could probably talk to that as well. But I think that's a good way to. I mean, it's the best that you can do when you're trying to constantly innovate, right?
And also, as engineers and producers, and we spend a lot of time and money, like you guys do, trying to develop that perfect product. And as much as we, millions, literally millions to do this, and as much as we put into that, it can't wave a candle to shipping 20,000 of these things out to the world and having them, do some crazy stuff that you wouldn't have thought somebody would do with the gun, and getting
Right.
that feedback. You know what I'm saying? And so, but just by nature, that feedback is a pretty important part. Those to just making it better and better. And so it's I think a big part of the podcast is even helping educate our audience of what it looks like to innovate and to produce something, and their crucial role in being a part of that, really.
They are, and on the backside of that too, though, is, with your podcast and being able to, get a little bit of a peek behind that curtain and hopefully let people understand that there's a lot more behind the scenes into the development and the long term of it than a lot of people realize. Because I'm not sure if you guys personally are the ones that follow social media and stuff, but you get comments all the time. It's like you release something new, and they're like, "Well, what if you just made it in this?" And it's like a lot of times, like, just rechambering isn't the answer. I mean, you've got spring rates and different things of that sort to take into account whenever you're looking at changing it from this cartridge to this cartridge. So a lot of people think it's just like, oh, well, you snap your fingers and voila, new product. But it's man, it kind of, like I said earlier, you have those projects that, man, everything in your head says, okay, do it this way, this way, this way. And you get it 80%, 90% of the way there, and it feels great. But that last 10% could take a year, because it's those little tweaks. Like, you start really endurance testing it. You're like, well, why did it fail this way? Okay, well, now we have to change this. So we changed this, and now that made something else fail. And you're like, oh, we were so close. We wanted to release it. And then you're chasing those gremlins that you just don't know where they came from.
Yes. Yeah, no, exactly. One of the reasons I wanted to reach out to you guys, Mike, at CMMG, is I feel like that what you guys are doing is leading innovation in the industry. You may not be focused on chasing military contracts, but I think that you guys are reaching pretty far outside the box with your MK-47 rifle, your radial delayed system, and your DISSENT Rifle series, and I like what you're doing. And I'm a gun junkie. I run a company over here, but I'm extremely passionate about our industry and new technologies. And like we were talking about having you on this podcast, and you mentioned, technically we're competitors, Desert Tech and CMMG. We're chasing the same.
But we want each other to succeed, though, because if we don't succeed, nobody in this industry does. You have to push those boundaries. You have to keep things moving forward, or things get stale. And if things get stale, that's when they start making the restrictions that the certain states do that they can pinpoint. They're like, okay, well, we were going to ban this, 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 and this. And you're like, okay, well, that also leads to our innovation. We're like, all right, well, how do we get around that? Exactly. I mean, California has been innovators for a long time because of the crap that they have to deal with. They're like, there's so many things to keep their customers armed. And I'm sure you guys know too. I mean, there are way more gun buyers in California than people think they are. I mean, they think California heavy restrictions. Oh no, they don't have any guns. No, California has a ton of guns, and legally obtained guns.
Yeah, and a lot of places to shoot them too. And I think that those two play well together. But
Well, and I mean, and you guys are really pushing things too. Like, I mean, I'll be honest. When I first saw like the Quattro 15, I'm like, what's going on here? I was like, and my first thing in my head, and this is from a consumer side of things, I'm like, all right, but can I shoot a standard AR magazine out of it? You see the initial thing, you see your magazine and stuff. I'm like, you're kind of locking yourself into that proprietary line of things, and I'm like, all right, is this going to hurt? And then I'm like, they thought of that. squared
Yep.
away. All the mags I have loaded up are still going to work just fine with this. But when I really need the capacity without reloading and stuff, you guys have it figured out. And, that's fun stuff, instead of having to worry about like, was it the Booney Packer Ready Mag or something like that, or on the side of the AR. I mean, you're probably still significantly lighter than all that.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Without a doubt.
Yeah,
and a lot easier to carry too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We didn't want to do like a big drum or a big ginormously long banana clip. We didn't want to do any of that. Well, the beauty of our industry too is you can buy more than one gun. So I like your gun.
Exactly.
You like my gun. Let's just get them both.
Well, I mean, so you got the Quattro 15 lower.
Yep.
And our DISSENT goes on a standard mil spec lower, so your stuff lines up to mil spec parts. You just have more feeding to it now, Exactly. So it's people can buy your lower, our upper, and they can make the stuff work and make what they want. And that's the other beauty about the AR platform is it's it's Legos for adults. It's
Yeah, we have 2 of our employees that did that. They bought DISSENTs and they replaced your lowers with our Quattro lowers and tricked them out. They're pretty neat.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, but yeah, is there anything else you want to share with our audience?
No, I mean, other than just, continue supporting innovative companies like Desert Tech, like us, continue supporting the Second Amendment, not just the guns you like, every gun, because if you don't support somebody else's gun, eventually they're not going to be there to support you whenever they're coming for our guns. So we all have the same common enemies. It's politicians and rust. And we need to stay in that fight together. They're constantly coming out with other ways to try to suppress us, to keep our voices quiet, and to make us seem like we are the evil people that they deem us being, and we're not. So take your time, support the Second Amendment, support companies that support the Second Amendment and innovation, and just keep fighting the fight.
Amen.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. We appreciate your time.
Yep.
All right, thanks, guys.
It's good to have
Thank you. I'll talk to you later.
And for all of our viewers, if you like the video, please like and subscribe. And if you have any recommendations of people or companies that you'd like to see us interview, please comment below. We'd love to have more people on here and talk about their innovations and how they're improving the industry. So,
Very good.
yeah.
Thanks for watching.